Shabbat Shalom. See if I can improve the lighting here. Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters. And good morning to you wherever you are on the earth. Good afternoon and good evening to some of you. If you're in the Southeast Asian part of the world, then it's 11:16 in the evening. And if you're in the United States or on the East Coast, where New York, Washington, D.C., and Miami are, then it's 11:16 in the morning. And then every place in between, the Far East and the West, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. We have been studying the book of Revelation, and we are in chapter 17. And this is the third part of chapter 17. We started off as the angel was showing John the judgment upon the whore that had already been really destroyed in Revelation 16. And so what we saw is, again, Revelation is not necessarily all chronological. And as I said, we talked about this before. For example, we said how when you're looking at the book of Daniel, Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter 8 actually happened before Daniel chapter 5. And how do we know that? Well, Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter 8 tell you about things that happened under the reign of Belshazzar. Belshazzar was killed, murdered in Daniel chapter 5. And so we saw also how the book of Revelation is like other prophecies. When you read all the prophecies of the Bible in terms of the prophets of the Hebrew Israelite prophets, Ezekiel or Daniel or Jeremiah or Yeshaya, otherwise known as Isaiah, when you read these prophets, or even Moses, when you're reading Moses in Deuteronomy, or the book called These Be the Words, Adabarim, when you're reading these, you will see that in all cases, the Most High is repeating a message to the prophet. And he's repeating the message sometimes in different ways, but it's the same message. And so you can see that there's a rhythm to prophecy in the Bible. For example, when we look at I think it was Amos. Yeah, when you look at Amos, it's a good example of what I'm talking about. When you look at Amos, let's look at Amos just as an example of how there's a rhythm to the Most High and a rhythm to the prophecy. Look, I want you to show you. Let's look at Amos chapter 1. I'm going to read verse 3. Amos chapter 1, verse 3. Notice what it says. Thus saith Yahweh, for 3 transgressions of Damascus, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they have threshed Gilead with threshing instruments of iron. So you see what it says, for 3 transgressions, and for 4, I will not turn away your punishment. But then you go, and he's talking about Damascus there. But then you go to verse 6, Amos chapter 1, verse 6. Thus saith Yahweh, for 3 transgressions of Gaza, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they carried away captive the whole captivity to deliver them up to Edom. See again, for 3 transgressions and for 4. And then you go to verse 9. Thus saith Yahweh, for 3 transgressions of Tyrus, and for 4, I will not. And he continues doing it like that. So there's a rhythm. He starts off, it's almost like a refrain of a song. For 3 transgressions and for 4, I'm going to punish you. Then for you over here, for 3 transgressions and for 4. And then he goes to another one for 3 and that's a rhythm to the prophecy. Okay. And so that often happens in the Bible, not exactly the same way, but when you read the prophecies, you will see a repeated message given to the prophet in different ways. Okay. So that's what happens also in the book of Revelation. So you see what? 7 churches, followed by 7 seals, followed by 7 trumpets. You see that? So there's a rhythm to it. All right. And in that case, the beginning of it is 7, 7, 7, 7. Then you see in Revelation chapter 13, he talks about what? 6, 6, 6. And then when you look through the 6s of the 7 churches, the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, what do you see? His answer to 6, 6, 6 being the 144,000. Okay. So you can see the rhythm of the Most High in how he gives prophecies to prophets. And it's not always chronological in terms of chapter 1 through chapter 22. It doesn't always happen chronologically. So here in the book of Revelation, we're in chapter 17, and we saw the competition or the war, the battle between the enemy's forces and where he gives power to try to conquer the earth and to conquer the earth for his own kingdom, and then Yah and his answer to the enemy's forces and how he will conquer the kingdom. And then you see in Revelation 13:14, we saw 13, which this beast now has the crowns. We're going to talk about crowns today, because what we're seeing in this part of chapter 17 is kings with no kingdom. Remember, I asked you last night, look at verse 12 and see how unusual that is. Is it not unusual to call a person a king and they have no kingdom? Right? Is there such a thing as a king with no kingdom? See, but that's what it says. We're going to talk about that. But you can see the culmination of the kingdom that Asatan is developing, the kingdom of darkness that he's actually developing. You can see the culmination of that. And then you see the counter, the Most High's counter to that when he establishes the kingdom of righteousness in Messiah. Then you see our place on the sea of glass as we have been delivered, as our fathers were delivered. We have been also delivered, right? And we're delivered onto the sea of glass before taking possession of the land. And while we are on the sea of glass, plagues come. Plagues come to the kingdom of darkness, okay, as they came to ancient Egypt and didn't affect the children of Israel, the last 7. So now we see the last 7, it calls it the last 7 plagues hitting the earth that do not affect the children of Israel and those redeemed with them, but will affect the wicked of the earth. And then after that, the last of the 7 plagues is the return of Messiah. The return of Messiah in terms of Father Yah, in terms of destruction, in terms of the first resurrection. And then you see now one of the angels that poured out those vials comes to John and say, okay, I'm going to show you the judgment of the whore, because brothers and sisters, the whore only exists until the first resurrection. It doesn't exist after that anymore. And so when you are looking at the whore and the beast, the threefold union of the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet, that only exists until the first resurrection. After that, when you look at it at the second resurrection, they're no longer mentioned. As a matter of fact, the only time they are mentioned once. It says, and the dragon was cast into the lake of fire where the beast and the false prophet are. In other words, the beast and the false prophet were already there before the dragon was cast into the lake of fire, because they were destroyed in the first resurrection. So what you're seeing now, the system that you're seeing, the organization, we're going to talk more about that, the political, economic, and religious organization of the planet Earth as it now exists, will soon cease to exist in all 3 areas, never to exist again. Okay, never to exist again. In fact, that's what Revelation 18 is also about, that this is going to come to a complete end and it will never exist again. And we see again how Malachi is shown that. In Malachi, again, in just a short few verses, is shown the destruction in the first resurrection. They're also shown what leads up to that in the 144,000's message in returning to Yah, and the instructions and commands given through Moses, the 2 witnesses, Elijah and Moses, right? And that represented in the 144,000 in the 6th church, the 6th seal, and the 6th trumpet. All right. So let's take a look at that. Malachi chapter 4. Malachi chapter 4. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Yahweh of hosts. And notice the end part, it says that it shall leave them neither root nor branch. So everything involving the present system that we are now in will be completely destroyed, annihilated. There won't be any system like that anymore after this. It's in its last days right now. It's, I used to say the last days of Earth's history, or the last days before the world is destroyed. But really, more accurately, what it is, it's the last days of the present system that will never exist again. Okay, it's the last days of the political, economic, and religious system that we all are born into. It will no longer exist. And again, what we should understand is it goes back to the Most High's word about himself, which he also repeats in the book of Revelation. What does he say about himself? I am Alpha and Omega. And he says it in Greek. Notice that. Why? Because he wants the children of Yafet to understand. He wants us to understand we're born into the Western culture, right? So he says, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. And again, when you start to understand your Father, you will understand more what that means. It's deeper than just he was there at the start and he's there at the end. It means he exists. Remember what he said? Moses said, what should I tell the children of Israel my name is? Your name is. Who is it that's sending me? And he said, you tell them, I am that I am. Tell the children of Israel, I am sent you. And what does that mean? When you look up in the Hebrew, it means I exist that I exist. In other words, the higher, Ashar, Ahaya. And some people get caught up and say, well, that's his real name. We should call him Ahaya. But you have to look deeper and stop arguing by looking at one verse. When you look at the whole situation from Exodus 3 to Exodus 6, and you look up Yahweh or Jehovah, what it says here, Jehovah means Yah exists. See, so it's not a different name. He's now telling you his name as he is. He said, Yah exists. That's what Yahweh means. Yahweh means Yah exists. Okay, that's what it means. So when he said I exist, he's talking about himself in the first person, right? I exist. Ahaya. But when he's telling you, this is my name, Yah exists. That's my name. Yah exists. Yahweh. So you have two words in the Hebrew that mean to exist. Ahawa and Ahaya. One is the first person. I'm talking about myself. And one, I'm talking to you in the third person about myself. Does that make sense, y'all? So now you're saying the same thing, but now you're talking in the first person. I exist. The second one, you're talking about yourself in the third person. Yah exists. You understand? Yahweh, right? So that's what he told Moses. Tell him Yah exists. Tell him Yah exists. He said, by my name, Yah exists. Your fathers didn't know me. They knew me by Allah Shaddai or Al Shaddai. See, Allah Shaddai. That's what they knew me by. The Most High Almighty. And this is where the Muslims, which, we're going to talk more about the Muslims today, but we talked about them in chapter 9 of the book of Revelation. We're going to revisit that a little bit today, but this is where they're mistaken, and they would be mistaken. Why would they be mistaken? Because they're Shemites by blood, but they are not what? They're not Hebrew Israelites by blood. The Arabs are Semites by blood, but they're not Hebrew Israelites by blood. And why do I make that distinction? Because the chosen people are Hebrew Israelites. That is Hebrew from Eber and Israelites from the man whose name was Jacob. That's the seed. That's the chosen seed. So we would know his name. That's why they could say Allah, which means a general form of the Most High. They would say Allah. That's not his name, though. But it's because they wouldn't know his name. We would know his name. You understand? It's not given to them, just like it's not given to the Gentiles. Notice in the Bible, when they put it out, they put out the word. What they put? They put Lord in capital letters. They put Lord in capital letters because they don't know how to say what? His name. And when you hear a Gentile try to say his name, this is what they're going to say. Yahweh. You ever heard that? Yahweh. When you see Gentiles trying to get to this truth and they try without us, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get to this truth without the chosen, to make themselves the chosen. And when you could tell the sign of that is when they call his name. Yahweh. That's not his name. Yahweh is not his name. Okay? That's not his name. Okay? There is no A sound in Yahweh. That's not in Hebrew. Even in the Ashkenazi Hebrew. Okay? Yahweh. That's his name. Okay? Some brothers will say Yahuwah. Fine. I'm not arguing with that. But you will not hear the brothers that are awakening say Yahweh. You will not hear them say that. You will hear the Gentiles say Yahweh because they don't know his name, right? Neither do the Shemites that are of Arab descent that are followers of the Islam. They will say Allah because they don't know his name. That's not his name. That's a title, but that's not his name, okay? And so He said, by my name, your fathers didn't know me, Moses. They knew me by Allah Shaddai or Al Shaddai. They didn't know me by my name, no. They called me the Almighty Most High. Okay, so they didn't know. But the chosen knew. Because why? Because they are called by his name. Does that make sense? They are called by his name. So they would know his name. And as a matter of fact, that's what Exodus chapter 3-6 is all about. It's the Most High teaching this Hebrew Israelite, this is my name. He has not done that to any person. You know, in the Bible, you don't see that anywhere. He says to Moses, this Levite of the children of Jacob, this is my name. Because that children of Jacob, whose name was changed to Yasha'al, is called by his name. Right? So they would know his name. We're instinctively created to know his name. Okay? That's why as Israelites, we have been what? Oppressed, afflicted, in bondage, like our fathers was. Okay? On this earth, because we're the only people that are created to know him by name. All right? And we are called to show the Gentiles his name. And those Gentiles that want to argue and fight with us because they want to be in charge, they're just like the rest of the Gentiles, lost. Lost. It's not for them to lead. It's not for them to teach us. It's for us to teach them. And I'm not saying that as a matter of pride. I'm saying that as a matter of Yah's will. Yah's will. Okay? It's like, you know, the Godfather, right? You in the Godfather, the original Godfather, the Godfather had 3 sons, and then he had an adopted son, a 4th son. And each of the sons had character traits, right? So the adopted son became the counselor, the consigliere, right? The oldest boy was hot-headed, Sonny, right? He was hot-headed. The middle child, well, he was a little slow. He wasn't smart. He didn't have the intelligence to run something, right? And so, but Michael, the youngest one, was the smartest one. And so when it came time to choose a successor, because his oldest son was murdered, he chose the youngest son, Michael. So later on, the other son says, I was passed over. And then Michael says, that's the way Pop or our father wanted it. And he says, that ain't the way I wanted it. And you know what happened to him after that. See? And so right now, our father wants this. He wants the Hebrew Israelites, the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to be the ones to show the earth about himself, including his name. That's his way. I'm not saying it because I'm trying to take over. I'm saying it because this is Father's will. And so you got some Gentiles say, that ain't the way I wanted it. Hey, you ain't fighting with me. You fighting with the Creator. Okay? So we know his name, Yahweh or Yahuwah, depending on how you want to say it. But it's not Yahweh. You will see Yahweh by Gentiles that don't really know. And they're trying to tell you they know, but they don't. But that's how it is, brethren. So Malachi chapter 4 says, for behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, yea, all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith Yahweh of hosts, and it shall leave them neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of righteousness arise with healing in his wings. And ye shall go forth and grow up as calves of the stall. And ye shall tread down the wicked, for they shall be ashes under the soles of your feet in the day that I shall do this, saith Yahweh of hosts. Remember ye the law of Moses, my servant, which I commanded unto him in Oreb for all Israel, with the statutes and judgments. Behold, I will send you Elijah or Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of Yahweh. And he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. So this is going to be the first resurrection, the destruction of the whole system in which we now live. And so now in Revelation 17, the angel is showing John the origin, the organization, and the destruction of that power. In Revelation 13, you're seeing the plans of Asatan for that power to take over the earth and rule it with no opposition. See, and this is the end game, brethren. Whoever wins the fight, and this is the same with any kingdom. Whoever wins the fight must have total and complete control over the entire kingdom, right? No kingdom that's established on the earth is established when it's divided, right? When the Europeans came to the land that is now called the United States, they had to destroy all opposition to their empire. And that's what they did. They destroyed the Indians, the northern tribes of Ephraim. They destroyed anybody that would oppose them, and they established what? Their kingdom. Right? And then according to prophecy, they're establishing it around the earth. But that's what they must do, establish their kingdom by destroying or converting all opposition, which is what the mark of the beast is about. The mark of the beast is all about power and control and submission to the established kingdom of Asatan. And the 144,000 represent the spiritual power of opposition to that, which is the righteousness of the Father Yah. Okay, and that's what it comes down to. Okay, because Father Yah, when he gives the kingdom, or he gave the kingdom to Mashiach Yahushua, to the Messiah, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, when that kingdom is established, there will be no opposition. There will be no rebellion. It won't exist anymore. Okay, that's why we can say with assurance, this complete system that we're now in is going to be destroyed. Okay, it will not exist anymore after the first resurrection. It will not exist. Now, the second resurrection has to do with evil in and of itself, rebellion in and of itself being destroyed. See, so now any rebellion against the kingdom of righteousness, that's the second resurrection. Complete destruction of all rebellion. Okay, that's what's going on. This is a war, brother, that we in. And only one side could win. That's what we in. We're in a spiritual war. And again, I want to reiterate what I've said before. By the grace of the Most High, he gets all the praise. The spiritual war that we're in is more powerful, more dangerous, more destructive than anything physical. And in fact, every physical thing that you see happening is the result of a spiritual thing going on behind it. Everything. Somebody's anger, somebody's joy, somebody's sadness, somebody's happiness, somebody's righteousness, somebody's sin. It all starts in the spirit. You understand? So that's where we at. So now you're going to see now we saw in the beginning of chapter 17, the whore, the establishment of this whore that all the kings fornicate with. They all have her, but she's ruling them. See? And that's just like, this is the thing about women. You might think you controlling a woman, but there's one thing she got that she is shown for centuries. She can control you even though you're physically stronger than her. Okay? There's one thing she got that she can control you with. Well, more than one thing. Yeah, two things. She got the intuition, and she got this other thing that men like to get at. And you think you're getting something, and she controlling you. Okay? And that's what's going on there. They fornicating with her. They think they're getting something, and she's controlling them. She's riding them. Okay? Yeah, that's it. She's controlling you by that thing. All right? And so that's how that goes. And then we saw she's in the wilderness. She's controlling them in secret. As we see now. We'll talk more about that. Then we saw John was shown her real thing, how she came to pass, how it was built, starting with Nimrod and going to the children of Yafet. He showed, and then coming up to the United States of America, where we now are, who said they're going to rule for what? A short space. And we see the United States of America, it is obvious. There is no country, and I challenge anyone, go find me a country that ruled the entire planet that's less than 300 years old in history. Ruled the planet religiously, economically, and politically, all at the same time, and is less than 300 years old. But please find me that one. especially among countries and nations that are multiple thousands of years old. And this young one rules all of the rest. Okay, there's been none. It says it shall continue a short space. Okay, it's like a shooting star. Shooting star rises and falls just as quickly. That's where we at. Okay, now we'll look more into that today. I wanted you all to read that verse 12 where it says, a king with no kingdom. Let's go into first back to Daniel again. Let's go back to Daniel chapter 2. We know we studied this again and again. This is the thing about Daniel. It is so connected to the book of Revelation. I mean, more than all the rest of the prophets. All prophets in the Hebrew Israelite prophets of the Bible are connected to the book of Revelation. All of them. But Daniel has a special connection. Okay. The Most High chose that. And so when you're looking at the book of Revelation, it is a wise thing to keep referring back to Daniel because it's going to show you a lot. And when you're studying Daniel, it's a wise thing to keep referring to the book of Revelation because it's going to show you a lot. It's amazing how they unlock each other. Okay. So now in Daniel 2, we saw Nebuchadnezzar had the dream about a statue. And the statue started as gold and ended up in the feet as a combination of iron and clay. Where we are in Revelation 17 is that iron and clay. So let's look a little closely at that. Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2. And Daniel showed Nebuchadnezzar what he dreamt. And then he said after that, now we showed you what you dreamt. And Daniel showed him not only what he dreamt. It always amazes me that he showed Nebuchadnezzar, this is what you were thinking before you went to sleep. And then you went to sleep and had this dream, and this is what you dreamt, right? So Nebuchadnezzar's totally tripped out. He's bugging, right? So now he's going to tell you, okay, we showed you the dream. Now we're going to give you the interpretation. And that's Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2. Let's see. I'm going to start at verse 36. Okay, so verse 36 of Daniel chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 36. Well, yeah, I'm going to start at verse 36. And then I'm going to go from verse 36 down to verse 44. 36 to 44, the interpretation of the dream. But we're really looking closely at 41 and 42. Okay, that's because that's what we're dealing with in Revelation 17. So for context sake, let's start at verse 36. This is the dream, and we will tell the interpretation thereof before the king. Thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the Most High of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory. And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and hath made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold. And after thee shall arise another kingdom, inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron. Forasmuch as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things, and as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise. And whereas thou sawest the feet and toes, part of potter's clay, and part of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, but there shall be in it of the strength of the iron. For as much as thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, and as the toes of the feet were part of iron and part of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. Whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with clay. And in the days of these kings shall the Most High of heaven set up a kingdom, which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Now, let's talk about that. The miry clay. So we are in the miry clay. Now, I want you to understand, let me ask a question here. In these four empires, remember what Zechariah taught us. Let me ask you again now. What do these four empires have in common? Why did he choose these four empires as opposed to all of the other kingdoms that have existed on the earth? Why did the Most High point out Babylon, Media, Persia, Greece, and Rome? Why did he point out these four above all the other empires, Chinese dynasties and African dynasties? That's right, Brother Han, because Zechariah was shown these are the four powers that have scattered Israel and Judah. Now, with that understanding, we know that this statue has nothing to do with Israel in terms of these different elements, right? Gold, the silver, the brass, the iron, and the clay. It has nothing to do with Israel, okay? It's all to do with those powers that have scattered Israel. Y'all follow me so far? Okay? Now, the stone that hits and destroys the statue, that's Israel. That's Yah. That's Messiah. He destroys and sets up a kingdom which shall not be left to other people, but it shall last forever. That's Messiah. Got that? Okay? So that's Messiah now. That's where Israel comes in, the destruction of this. So what is it? So some people get this verse confused. Now, but by the grace of the Most High, let's show what it is now. The miry clay. All right? Now, there's a mention of miry clay, right, in the book of Isaiah. So let's look at Isaiah chapter 64, where the mention of miry clay. Okay? Isaiah chapter 64. And y'all are going to be able to answer this. Watch. Because if you've been watching these videos from the beginning, the Revelation series, you're going to be able to answer this question. Watch. About the miry clay. So let's look in Isaiah 64. Isaiah 64. I'm going to start at verse 1. For this, again, for the sake of context, I'm going to start at verse 1. I'm going to go from verse 1. Let's see. I'm going to start at what we're really looking at, verse 8. But I'm going to go from verse 1 to verse 8. Okay, you ready? From verse 1 to verse 8, Isaiah 64. Oh, that thou wouldest rend the heavens, that thou wouldest come down, that the mountains might flow down at thy presence. As when the melting fire burneth, the fire causeth the waters to boil, to make thy name known to thine adversaries, that the nations may tremble at thy presence. When thou didst terrible things which we looked not for, thou camest down, the mountains flowed down at thy presence. For since the beginning of the world, men have not heard, nor perceived by the ear, neither hath the eye seen, O Yah, beside thee, what he hath prepared for them that waited for him. Now thou meetest him that rejoices and worketh righteousness, whose those that remember thee in thy ways. Behold, thou art wroth. Thou art wroth, for we have sinned in those is continuance, and we shall be saved. But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousnesses are as filthy rags, and we do all fade as a leaf, and our iniquities like the wind have taken us away. And there is none that calleth upon thy name, that stirreth up himself to take hold of thee. For thou hast hid thy face from us, and hast consumed us because of our iniquities. But now, O Yahweh, thou art our Father. We are the clay, and thou art our potter, and we all are the work of thy hand. So here it calls the clay Israel. Yah is the potter, the creator of Israel. But that statue is not a created of Israel. It's mixed with iron. They're trying to cleave together, but they can't. So what we conclude then? That clay in the statue is somebody that's trying to act like they Israel. Somebody that's trying to act like they're chosen, but they're not. And they and the iron don't really get along. Their alliance is loose at best. Their alliance is loose at best. But they have an alliance, but it's loose at best. What power is there on the planet in a religious sense that is cleaving with the iron, that is aligned with them, but not strongly, like not strong enough so that everybody's feeling comfortable? Well, there are actually two powers. Remember now, what does the Bible, what do people show us? The three what? Abrahamic religions, right? Three Abrahamic religions. What are they? Well, Christianity, that's where you get the whore from. Then you got Islam, and then you got Judaism. And each of the three came together as a result of the fighting, right? Remember now, in the 6th century, that's when the establishment of the Roman Catholic institution was, in the 6th century. Then in the 7th century, come Muhammad and his vision in Islam. And then in the 8th century, came Ashkenazi Jews out of Russia. Okay, so you had these three come together, but their connection is loose, especially now with Muslims and Christians and Muslims and Jews. Look, people like to say, it's because of Ishmael and Isaac that there's fighting in the Middle East. That's some crap. When you read the Bible, where does it say Ishmael and Isaac were fighting? In the Bible. Where does it say that? Where does it say Ishmael and Isaac were at war with each other? It doesn't say that. That's man-made. See, be careful when they put out propaganda that's not in the word. Of course, you wouldn't know that unless you read the word, right? But there's none of that in the Bible. It said that Ishmael was mocking Isaac, and because of that, Abraham sent him away. Abraham is the father of both of them, and he sent, because the Most High said, send the bondwoman's son away. Isaac's going to be the seed. Okay, so no. So what did happen? What did happen? We studied, let's go to Revelation chapter 9. We studied Revelation chapter 9, and we saw some things. Notice what we saw, Revelation chapter 9. And it mentioned 150-year period of a fight between the people that received the mark of the beast and these other people that were led by a man named Apollyon, that came out of the bottomless pit, that came out of a fight between the nations. Right? Then Revelation chapter 9, let's look at that. Revelation 9, verse 1. Revelation 9 from verse 1 down to verse, Revelation 9 from verse 1 down to verse 5. Revelation 9, 1 to 5. Notice what it said. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth. And to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit. Smoke causes your eyes to be burning. You can't breathe, right? You could die from smoke inhalation. Well, first thing come out of this pit is smoke, right? Notice again, as the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth. And unto them was given power as scorpions of the earth have power. And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of Yah in their foreheads. And it was given unto them that they should not kill them, but that they should be tormented 5 months. And their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. And in Bible prophecies, 5 months we saw was 150 years. What significant 150 years happened during the course of time? Well, we see that Islam had a victory called the Edict, and then started what's called the Edict of Turin. The Edict of Turin came at the end of the 150 years. The 150 years started in 1300 and 1303 when it was a battle between the Muslims and the Catholics, where the Muslims was taking Constantinople and turning it into Istanbul, and they were coming against the Catholic Church and against the European powers of Catholicism and Christianity. And it lasted for exactly 150 years and ended in 1453 with the Edict of Turin. Okay, and that shows you who that was. And then it says, verse 11 says, and they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue his name is Apollyon, a destroyer. Destroyer led this group, and it came at them for 150 years. And not only that, it said it had stings in their tails. And the Bible shows us the tail represents false prophet. It said the head is ancient and honorable. It said the tail is lies, prophets that teach lies. That's Isaiah chapter 9. Let's take a look. Isaiah was chapter 8. Let's look at it. Isaiah chapter 9. Isaiah 9. And let's look at verse 15. Isaiah 9:15. The ancient and honorable, he is the head. And the prophet that teaches lies, he is the tail. So when you see a tail, it's talking about prophet that teaches lies, a false prophet. So this was a false prophet. It came at Rome and tormented it. Couldn't destroy it, but tormented it. So now you have, at this point, where we are right now, a loose union between Rome and Islam. A loose union. You have also a loose union between Ashkenaz and Rome. Why? Because Ashkenaz is only concerned with money and control through money. Rome is concerned with power over everything. So Rome gives the marching orders, because that's who established by Satan himself. The dragon gave him his power, his seat and authority. There you go. But then, with regard to the money, anything to do with banking, finance, you see Ashkenazis in control. Anything to do with making money, you see Ashkenazis in control. Okay, and the Bible tells us about them, calls them Edomites, and it says, I have made you small among the heathen and greatly despised. Of the three so-called Abrahamic religions, it is the smallest in terms of population. Way smaller than the other two. Whereas in Christianity, you have over 1 billion people. In Islam, you have over 1 billion people. In Ashkenazi, you might have 10 million. You know, it's much smaller than the rest of them. I've made you small among the heathen and greatly despised. They've always been despised because they're experts at putting people in debt. They're experts at putting people in debt. Okay? That's been the history now. I'm not telling you anything nobody doesn't know already. They control banks. The Federal Reserve is usually controlled by them. They control monetary things, monetary policy. They're the head of all of those things because they're involved with money. Always been that way. Okay? Always been that way. And there's some Hebrews, I've heard people say, well, that's showing you they're blessed because they get money. That's your thinking, that you think this world's dollars and currency is your blessing. You see, you see what I'm saying? People get thinking, oh, the dollars and currency of this world, that means it's a blessing. No. And then someone will say, well, Abraham was rich. What does that mean? That means you're supposed to go after money? You cannot serve money in Yah, period. How was Abraham rich? Abraham was traveling in tents. And while he was traveling through deserts, he collected stuff. He collected cattle. He collected sheep. He collected goats, bullocks, right? And then he had gold too. But he was traveling. It wasn't like Abraham was trying to, he said, listen, I'm going to just get rich in this world. That's not what it was. And what did that riches do for him? He wanted a son. He would have gave it all away just to get a son. Most High gave him a son, right? But it wasn't the riches. In fact, if you look at the Bible, riches corrupt more than they help. We talk about power. David was rich after he became king, and he committed murder for somebody's wife. Solomon was rich when he became king, and then he started worshiping all these other gods and having all these kids and cause a division in the kingdom. Nah, it ain't about the dollar. And then the dollars of this system, please, right? Please. Dollars of this system ain't your blessing. It might help you, because we poor and struggling. It might help us, but that help is always what? Temporary. Not permanent. Just like the dollars themselves. Temporary. Okay? So people think, well, they get money because they must be blessed. No. They get money because Satan said to y'all, what did he say to the Messiah? He showed him all the glory of the kingdoms of this world. And he said, all this will I give you if you what? You bow down and worship me. That deal ain't changed. And though Messiah didn't take it, all the rest of his people, that is, Asatan's people, have took the deal. Okay, now, so we can see now the clay are the other parts of the threefold union of the Abrahamic, so-called Abrahamic religions, Islam, and Ashkenazi Judaism. Okay, they're all starting to, they come together, but their union is not that strong. See what I'm saying? Their union is not that strong. Okay, they have a one world system, but it's not as tight as they like it. And why is it not as tight as they like it? Because in the kingdom of Asatan, okay, in the kingdom of Asatan, in the kingdom of Asatan, the opposition is the Hebrews. Okay, the opposition is the Hebrews. So as long as there is Hebrew opposition to this world system, it will never control everything. And how scared are they of the Hebrews? Let's just do a brief history of examples of how scared Asatan and those powers under his control, namely the children of Japhet, are of the Hebrews. Every time the Hebrews gain wealth and power in their system, they destroy the wealth and power. They do it consistently. Examples are, like, for example, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Black Wall Street. They called us separate and equal, but we were separate and unequal. And even in that system, they built a wealth and a power that scared children of Japhet enough so that they came through and burned it to the ground and bombed it. Same in Wilmington, North Carolina. Same in Rosewood, Florida, and many other places around the United States. Every time the Hebrews start to build something and to create something whereby they might become independent of Japhet, Japhet destroys it. That's what he does, destroys it. That's how scared they are. Here we have been under their thumb, and I'm just using the United States as an example because it is, again, that short-term beast. But this, you can repeat this around the earth, wherever the Hebrews have been scattered. But in the United States, you can see that they have poisoned us. All right, literally poisoned us, put poison in our food, put poison in our neighborhoods. They've been poisoning us, trying to poison us since we've been here, especially since the chains came off our neck. They create laws designed to destroy us. The 3 strikes law. They create the poison, the crack, and then try to kill us for trying to traffic the poison and make money. Right? They continually, Flint, Michigan, I don't even know if they got clean water yet. How could you be in the United States of America and have a city that has water that everybody in the United States knows is killing anybody that drinks it, and they haven't done anything to clean it? You think that's accidental? Okay, so wherever we are, they have always been trying to kill us. And just think about, why are they trying to kill us? The word shows us, because Asatan, who's behind them, knows who we are. And the biggest threat to his kingdom is those Hebrews that awaken to know who they are. Why? Because once they awaken, Yahweh will respond to them, and then it's over. Okay, and that's why the awakening is the sign. The sign is not in the UN, is not in the Vatican, is not in the White House. The sign is the awakening of the Hebrews, because that awakening triggers a whole series of events that ends up destroying this system that we're in. Okay, all right, and only the Hebrews will see the sign. It's not for everybody to see, because not everybody is the servants. The servants see the sign. That's why, again, Daniel says, the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And remember the end game. It's a zero-sum game. As long as you have Hebrews that could call on Yah and are awakening as to who they are in their enemies' lands, Asatan can never have full power. So now, here's the problem Asatan has now. So you got these Hebrews and the threefold union of the three so-called Abrahamic religions. They are all in agreement. We got to keep them below us. We got to keep them down. And all three religions do that. All three do that. Okay. They might profess, oh, we don't believe in the man's skin color, blah, blah, blah. But when you look closely at it, brothers that come from West Africa that want to go to Mecca, you ask them, you look up the YouTube videos and see how they are treated when they go to Mecca, as opposed to those that come from other places that are not as dark as they are. You look up the brothers that are played, the sisters that are servants in the households of some of the people that are followers of Islam, being thrown out of windows, being beaten, being raped right now. Not talking about something that happened before, right now. Okay, in Islamic countries. You go to Yemen and you see what the Hebrews, how they live literally in garbage. They're the lowest caste of the Yemeni system. Okay, and then let them tell you how Islam is for everybody. Okay, let them tell you that. Go ahead and look up the sub-Saharan slave trade. They weren't just trying to put us in chains and rape us like the Japhet did. They were castrating our men and raping our women. Okay, then let them tell you how much of a religion of peace it is. There's too much history and there's too much going on. You understand? So brothers and sisters, this is what I'm saying. All of them agree. We must keep Jacob under our thumb, right? They all agree to that. But they can't completely agree with each other. That's why it's iron and clay. Okay? So the iron itself, the Bible says that its power, seat, and authority came from the dragon. That's the iron. Okay? That's the iron. The dragon created Islam. I don't know why. Maybe he thought he needed from what I've read, it was said that Islam came about as a way, an inroads to the so-called Middle East to control them in that religion. It came as a result because they were all broken up as far as religion. So it united them. But that unified thing came at Christianity and didn't work with Christianity. Okay, it came at it. Okay, so you had Asatan in the laboratory after he created Christianity. Let me create this other thing and maintain my dominance all over the earth with this other religion. And then he spilt the formula and it blew up. Now you got Islam and they coming against himself. So what did Messiah say? If Satan is divided against himself, his kingdom cannot stand. His kingdom cannot stand. So everything that's going on now is in part, at least, an attempt by the enemy to try to exactly. It's out of control. The mad scientist messed up, right? And so everything now is an attempt at unity. And that's what the Second Vatican Council of 1962 to 65 was about. It was about plans to create world unity under the power of Rome. Okay, that's what it was. Vatican Council 2. Vatican Council 1 was the plan to destroy the Reformation, the counter-Reformation. Vatican Council 2 was going a step further and to bring unity under the control of Rome. By Vatican Council 2 in 1962 to 65, the Jesuits had already gathered all the power of all countries. They had already infiltrated every religion, every country, every system. Okay, now they wanted to bring it together in a conscious unity, and they called it ecumenicalism. And that's a common term today, ecumenical. That means we're all unified. And that's what they've been trying to do. But the Bible shows you it's clay and iron. They will never be completely unified except for a short time. Short time, right? Very short time, right? That brings us now to Revelation chapter 17. So now we saw the whore. We saw, it showed us the great whore. We saw what's on her forehead. We saw that the forehead represents her character, just like when the 144,000 are sealed in their foreheads by the mark of Yah, that is his righteous character. So the whore is sealed with a character, and her character is different. And we saw the forehead of her. It said mystery. She operates in secret and deceit. Babylon the Great, they stole Hamitic doctrine, discoveries, knowledge. They stole it. The mother of harlots and abomination of the earth, the greatest harlot of religious power ever on planet Earth, is the Christian church. A God which their fathers knew not, Daniel says. It shall honor with gold and silver and precious things, and they, that is, the leaders of this religion, shall divide the land for gain. And that's exactly what we see in Christopher Columbus, with the promise of the Pope, came to North America. He came to the island, and then he was followed up by different people, Ponce de Leon, and then the French came, and they all came with the blessing of the Pope in Christianity to take over. And they did. That's why you have a thing called what? Colonization. What is colonization? That means you're being colonized. Whatever you thought you was, you're now in this system. You're colonized. You're brainwashed. You're being trained and bamboozled into a system that comes out of the children of your faith. The Gog and Magog system is what you're being trained in. That's what you're born into. Okay? And until you awaken, that's where you remain. All right. And it starts with awakening, starts again with what? An acknowledgement of who you worship. It always starts with worship. When you leave Babylon, the first step and the most important step is worship. That's the most important step. That's why Revelation 13 is littered, literally, with the word worship. Worship and power. We saw it last night. Worship and power, Revelation 13. Worship and power. Okay, so you see, that's what we're all born into. Okay, and people get focused on the money part because we have been brainwashed to think if we can gain enough of the money or the dollars or the currency of the Babylonian system, maybe we could be free. We could buy our freedom. Now think about this logically. How could you ever buy your freedom from the people who enslaved you that created the money? Does that make sense? In other words, the people who enslaved you, they created the currency. So they create the rules of the currency. How could you ever buy your freedom if they don't want you to? Because they own the currency. You don't own the currency. And I've heard people try to suggest we should create our own currency, and that's why you have a Bitcoin. Don't get stupid and think that Bitcoin is just something that is independent of Rome. No, bro. No. It's an illusion of independence. Anything that's being traded as value in the world is under the world control of Rome. You don't get to do anything without their permission. You understand? So you might think you're getting free, but you would never get free as long as you're trying to buy your freedom from the people that own the currency. You're never going to get free by that. They'll give you an illusion of freedom, but what they do when you get that illusion, they control you because you'll do anything to try to keep that money. You understand? So there's no freedom by currency. But they got a lot of people brainwashed to thinking if I could just get enough of this currency, I could buy my freedom. No, what you end up doing is you buying a lot of ability to move within a system. In other words, let me put it this way. What you just did is made your jail cell bigger. You bought a bigger jail cell, but you're still in jail. You see what I'm saying? See, we're all in jail. We're born in jail. Okay? And if you get enough currency, you can buy yourself a bigger jail cell. But just as long as you're in this system, you in jail. Okay? You ain't free no way. You just got a bigger jail cell. Okay? That's all you did. And if you really want the mark of the beast in your forehead, maybe you can own a jail. That's it. You still got a longer chain. That's all you got. All right? You still in jail. You still a slave. Okay? Just like what Mr. T said, your price tag is higher. That's all. Still a slave, your price tag is higher. Okay? So that's all. So now Revelation 17. Revelation 17, we stopped at verse 12. So let's go back. Revelation 17, verse 12. And we talked about the beast that was and is not. And we talked about now the 7 kings. We talked about 7 kings and how now in this scenario, you don't have Babylon anymore because they done stole Babylon's knowledge and took it to themselves. They what? Discovered it. And y'all know the children of Yafet have what? Discovered a whole bunch of stuff that they really stole. Right? And we see the evidence of that with the noses blown off in Egypt or Kemet. The nose is all blown off of them great statues. Why is the nose blown off? Because the children of Yafet discovered it. Right? They discovered it. Many inventions that Hebrews have invented, you won't see a Hebrew name there because the children of Yafet have what? Discovered it. If you really discover something, right? That means that you have created or found something that did not exist before or was not known to exist. If it already existed and it was known to exist among any people, you can't have claimed to discover it. And yet we know that's what they do. We discovered these people in the forest of a land that we didn't own. We discovered this land that people were there. Right? Always. They discover what they're really doing is stealing. So now you can see, we saw that they discovered Babylon and they stole all the knowledge and credited it to the Greeks. And that's where we begin here. You begin with the Medes and the Persians, then the Greeks, then the Romans, and then you come with the Roman in the political and economic sense, military sense. Then you come with the little horn, and then the little horn that gets power, seat, and authority from the dragon gets this other power that's a lamb-like beast that lasts a short space. Now, Revelation 17, beginning at verse 12. Now, in the Bible, horns represent power. Horn of salvation means, and you see that in the book of Psalms, in various Psalms, you'll see Yah is the horn of my salvation. That means power. And again, we talked about that a lot in last night's lesson. Power, right? You're dealing with power. So it says there's 10 horns. There's 10 points of power. There's 10 divisions of power. So these 10 divisions represent a world empire of power, right? So now you have here, verse 12, and the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings. So these are 10 kings or 10 nations, right? Which have no kingdom, which have received no kingdom as yet. So that's a strange statement, is it not? So the Bible is calling these nations kingdoms that have not received kingdoms. So they're running things, but they don't have the complete domination yet that they would like. Okay, see, you understand? So there are 10 kings, but they've received no kingdom as yet, because again, it's a zero-sum game. You can't have any opposition if you're going to have a kingdom. It's a zero-sum game. Okay, you got to have complete domination. There could be no opposition to your kingdom. None. Right? And just think of Yah. When Yah establishes the kingdom of Mashiach that he gave to his son, there'll be no opposition on the earth to that kingdom. There'll be zero opposition. That's the game. So that's when it says it has received no kingdom as yet. It doesn't have a kingdom where there's zero opposition. That's where you got opposition, not only from the most important part is the Hebrews, the awakened Hebrews, but not only that, you got opposition among themselves. Right? You got opposition among themselves. What you got? You got, for example, Democrats and Republicans. They're both, let me make this very clear. They're both deceptive, lying, disgusting entities. And you shouldn't be involved with any of them. But they claim to be different, and they're fighting each other for what? For power. Right? It's an example. For power. Is the United States the only entity where there's different political groups fighting for power? No, not the only one. And let me ask you this. Do you think that these other nations just want to allow the United States to have power and they just love the United States? No. If they could destroy us off the map completely, they would. Because they hate the United States. for the same colonialism that most of us understand is going on. Okay, so look, but it's about what? Money. So now you have what? You have international corporations, right? None of these hardly corporations are now existing in one nation for one nation only. Everything, Coke and Pepsi and Bayer aspirin and cars and everything you could think of, clothes, is international. You have corporations that have offices in different countries, right? Like, like for example, BMW is from Germany, but they got offices, they got big business right here in South Carolina. Toyota is from Japan, but they build lots of cars right out of Tennessee. And not just these two countries, all over the world. And I'm just thinking just that one thing, but you can name stuff. There's very few corporate entities that are powerful that are just in one country. And that's how they do it. When they come in, they're bringing you democracy. What is democracy? That's colonialism on location, right? When you say you on location, that means you're not where you originate, but you somewhere else doing the same thing. So the colonialism on location is democracy. That's what it is. Colonialism on location. So in other words, yeah, we took the Hebrews from West Africa and we enslaved them and put them in our nations. Yeah, but we let you guys in Ghana could stay there and y'all in Ethiopia could stay there, but we still control you. You're colonized where you are. You're colonized where you are. All right, colonialism. It's a system. That's exactly right. So now you have a situation here where it says they received no kingdom as yet. So they haven't gotten everything locked down with no opposition yet. But they're working on it, right? They're working on it, right? They haven't gotten it locked down. So there are 10 kings that received no kingdom as yet. And I noted to y'all a couple months ago about the 10 divisions called what? The IMF, that from the UN, right? The economic power of the UN is divided into 10. And we talked about the 10. And the 10 is really 11 because Belgium and Holland are together, right? They're counted separate now, but the original power that was Belgium and Holland used to be all one. It used to be Holland, but now it's divided into Belgium and Holland. But you have the same 10 divisions, and the 3 that are not in Europe are the United States, Canada, and Japan. Those 3 are not in Europe, but they're all part of the IMF, the economic power that rules the UN. 10 divisions. Okay, they call it the G10. If you look up G10 on your Google Maps, you will see the same 10 divisions that used to be back when Rome was in power in the 6th century. It had 10 divisions. And so here, though, it's different because now you have Japan, Canada, and the US, plus the 7 of the original ones that are in Europe. Now, the names are a little different. For example, we call Germany, but its original name was Alemanni, right? You had Alemanni, you have Franks, which now you call France. You had Anglo-Saxons, which is Britain. So they had different names, but it's the same people. Okay, the same people. Different names for the same people. All right. So that now called the G10. So now you have them here. And so it says, these are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. Verse 13. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. See, they're all agreed on certain things. Power being one. And disposing of any opposition to that power. Okay. These have one mind and give their power and strength to the beast. And again, you can see it in economics. What do all of those countries have in common? There are several things. But one of the main things is the economic of those countries. Each country has a central bank. Each country has a central bank, a central banking system. Canada has one. Japan has one. Of course, the U.S. has the main one, Central Bank of the United States, Federal Reserve Bank. But all of them have a central bank. The Vatican has its own central bank, because the Vatican is not only a country, it's a country and a religion. There's economic, political, and religious system is the Vatican. It's a country. And so in that, they have a central bank. Okay. And so with all of the others, they got a central banking system. All right. There you go. They give their power and strength unto the beast. Now, verse 14. Notice what it says in verse 14. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. These shall make war with the Lamb. It's a very important statement, very important situation. Now, what does the Most High say? And again, in Zechariah, about those powers that fight against his people. What does he call in that particular thing? Notice what it says here. Let's look at Zechariah chapter 2. Zechariah chapter 2. Zechariah chapter 2. Notice Zechariah chapter 2. I'm going to start at verse 7. I'm going to read just verse 7 and 8 for the sake of time. Zechariah chapter 2, verse 7 and 8. And again, you got witnesses like this in all the prophets. But let's, for the sake of time, Zechariah chapter 2, verse 7 and 8. Deliver thyself, O Zion, that dwellest with the daughter of Babylon. For thus saith Yahweh of hosts, after the glory he hath sent me unto the nations which spoiled you. For he that touches you touches the apple of his eye. He that touches you, Israel, touches the apple of his eye. So when it says they shall make war against the land, the first step in that war is what? Attacking those that are the apple of his eye. Okay, so first they try to attack Israel. Israel is represented in the 144,000 and those with the 144,000. The attack comes with the what? The mark of the beast, the image of the beast that demands worship, that is created by the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. The image is the false prophet. And so you have that threefold union coming together, and they're coming together against the apple of Yah's eye. That's the first attack. The last attack is what we're going to see when we get to chapter 19. Okay, that's the last attack. Here we're going to see it in chapter 19, giving you all a hint if you want to read ahead, chapter 19 of the book of Revelation, as well as the book of Ezekiel, chapter 39. That's the last attack of this system. Okay, not the total last attack, but the last attack of this system that we now are in, that we're talking about in Revelation 17. So when you're looking at chapter 19, you're seeing the last attack of this system as a system, the political, religious, and economic system that we're now in, which is soon to cease to exist. Okay, Revelation chapter 17, beginning at verse 15. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Again, here's a quiz question. Are you ready? Here's the quiz question. Y'all should know the answer to this now. We've been studying this for a while. Why is it peoples and nations and kingdoms and tongues where the whore sits? Why is it peoples and nations and kingdoms and tongues where the whore sits? The waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and nations and kingdoms and tongues. Why is that? Come on, talk to me now. Why is that? Come on, Israel. Talk to me, brethren. There you go. Thank you, Akawak. So I see the verse right there. Why is that? That's exactly right. That's right. It's powers of the Gentiles. Right? Remember now, the sea is representing what? The powers of the Gentiles. And we are scattered. Exactly. Only one way says two. We are scattered into the nations of the Gentiles. And when you see the seas, it's the power of the Gentiles fighting each other for power, right? And so that's the way the whore is sitting. She's on top of those powers. Okay, verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore and make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. So the same divisions that made the 10 horn union, they hate the whore. They're only dealing with her for what they could get from her, but they hate her. Okay. What do we say about the United States of America? People are scared of the United States. They fear the United States. But if they had a chance, they would destroy it. Yeah, see what I'm saying? So if they had a chance, they would destroy it. But they fear it because they know that of all the nations, only one nation has ever dropped nuclear weapons on another nation. Okay. So they hate it. They hate the whore. They hate the representative with the whore. They hate it. But they're in bed with her because they get stuff from her. Right. And so, but at the end, when it's destroyed, when it starts to collapse, they'll turn on each other. They'll turn on each other. And then verse 17 and 18. For Yah hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and to give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of Yah shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Now, a city, people, you think of a city, you think of one location within a nation. But the Bible also uses the word city to talk about the whole system, right? And so we're dealing with, we know there's a location, obviously, but it's also the whole system. It says the woman is the great city that reigneth over the kings of the earth. The Most High also likens Israel into a great city. Okay, but of course that's different, right? That's different. So now you see, that's right, exactly, Akawa. It's this representing the system. So now you can see the development of the opposition to Yah, the development, the plans, the history, and the future, which is we're in right now. We're actually living. Most of Revelation 17 is fulfilled except for that end part where they actually come together for a short while. The Bible says 1 hour they come together. And you'll see that when we saw that actually in Revelation chapter 13, we saw them coming together. That's why the horns, if you see verse 12, it's a king that have received no kingdom. When you go to Revelation 13, you'll see the horns, and we noticed, remember they had what on it? Crowns, because now that's where they received their kingdom, or at least temporarily thought they had a kingdom. Okay. All right. So now when we come back, we'll come back in about, I'm going to come back in about an hour, about 2:30. And we'll do Revelation 18. That's a whole, that's related to what we just did in chapter 17, but it's from the perspective of the 144,000 and the call to come out of this system before it's too late. Okay, we'll talk about that in Revelation 18 at 2:30. We'll come back, about 2:30. We'll talk about that. Okay, praise the Most High. Thank you all for indulging us as we study these things. We will continue in about an hour to just continue this study in Revelation chapter 18 with the 144,000. Yeah, it's now I got, oh gosh, wait, I'm sorry. Did I say, 1:30? You right. I'm always looking at the wrong thing. Thank you, Gary. Brother Castle King. Yes, 1:30, not 2:30, 1:30. You're right. 1:30. 1:30 Eastern time. Yes, 1:30 Eastern time. That's right. Thank you. 1:30 Eastern time. You're correct. I'm always looking at the live time, the hours of the broadcast instead of the time. Yeah, so it's 12:34 right now. We'll come back at 1:30 and we'll continue this study in Revelation 18 with the loud call, the loud cry of the 144,000. Until then, please be safe out there. Continue to pray for each other. Shalom.